Hi, everyone. Thank you for joining me. I am so excited and honored today to be part of this panel as your moderator. My name's Amelia Dansica, and over the next 45 minutes, we will be talking about how to utilize your customer data to scale effectively. I have three incredible leaders with me today who will be sharing some deep insights and stories that you can take back to your own organization and apply. So without further ado, I'd love to introduce you to my guests, Mary Bent Velzen. Thank you for joining us, Mary. She is the Vice President and General Manager of Global SMB at Concur and dialing in from the West Coast. Next, we have Megs Surak Call, and he is the Global Vice President and of Customer Experience and Customer Success at HPE, dialing in from Chicago. Is that right, Megs?
Yeah, Boston.
Boston.
Go Sox.
Boston. And then we have Manjula Talreja, and she is dialing in from the Bay Area where I am today too. She is the Chief Customer Officer at PagerDuty. So thank you all for joining me today. And of course, in Gainsight style of having fun, we're going to start with an icebreaker. And with most of us or anyone who has children, we just came back from spring break and now we're already thinking about our summer plans. So curious, would love to start with you. Manjula, what are you doing for your summer plans?
You know what I'm excited about is the lull in COVID. So fingers crossed, it's about meeting customers. So 2 weeks from now, I'll be in London and Paris after 2.5 years meeting with customers. It's so amazing that just a face-to-face meeting with a customer, even though we believe in data and automation, it's all about the customer and the relationship. So I'm super excited about vacations and meeting customers face-to-face.
Yes, it's so exciting. My guess is people will want to hug you. That's one of the first things I did when I saw clients. And what about you, Megs? What are you looking forward to this summer?
Oh, well, I'm going to be doing completely opposite to Manjula. So we recently got a new pup, 2 months old pup. It's a yellow Labrador, and going to be spending a lot of time, with the pup, playing with the pup. And it's a nice way to also get some downtime because we have been in such a crazy times working from home office. So you invariably land up spending a number of hours than you normally anticipate spending in an office, right? So it gives me a good way to kind of unwind and spend time with my new pup. Yeah, that's what I'm going to be doing. Super excited.
That is, congratulations, Megs. And
Thank
Mary,
you.
bringing it to you.
Yeah. Well, I'm very excited. We actually just got done booking a vacation. So I have 3 daughters. They're all under the age of 13. So they're excited to break free and get out on vacation too. So we just booked 3 weeks in Ireland. Then we're going to go to London. Then we're going to go to Paris. And I'm going to mix a little bit of work. I have a huge team in Paris, in London, and some folks in Ireland as well. So I'm going to be mixing a little bit of work with my vacation, but I'm very excited to again, go on vacation, but also see my team in person since it's been so long.
Wow, that sounds really exciting. And isn't it so wonderful to be able to see another country or culture through the eyes of your children? I know every time I bring my daughters to Europe, it's just so exciting to experience something from their perspective. So thank you for that. Now, moving on to more serious stuff, customer data. I'd love to transition and talk about scale. And I know that word is so overused, but let's start off with Megs. Can you tell us how you've leveraged customer data to get budget for your programs at HPE?
Absolutely. And I think, this day and age, data gravity is so critical. Every company thrives on having intelligence at their fingertips to really understand, hey, how are customers really reacting to some of the solutions and products that we spin out into the market, and how are they really reacting to the experiences they get from our customer, from the organization. So one of the things of many things that we're doing is we really kind of started to focus on data centricity. We want to make sure that we're driving data-driven culture in the company, and we really want to make sure that we get more intimate, more relevant to our customers through data. So one of the key things we started, as you know, and have you heard in the recent news, we have announced HPE GreenLake Edge to Cloud platform. That's a cloud services platform that we're going with, because normally HPE is known as the hardware original equipment manufacturer. Now we're moving into cloud services. So it becomes even more imperative and critical, if I may say so, to really get data more easily accessible, transparent, and visible. So all our teams are facing the customers, including our sellers, to our Point Next delivery team, which is about a 20,000 member team, plus our customer success, our advisory and professional services, our marketing, and our GMS, which we manage services for our customers. We all thrive on one single instrumentation end-to-end view of our customer. So that's a pan-HPE initiative that we are venturing out to achieve, and it's going to really transform the way we drive business. Now, to come back to your specific question, one of the things that we're doing from a customer success point of view is really to understand how do we really drive the value realization to customers, and what does that really mean for us in terms of the bottom line and the top line. We started to focus more on identifying the impacts that customers are getting from our solutions. And through that, we started to analyze with data in terms of how long does it take for customers in terms of time to adopt, as well as the time to first value realization. How does that translate from a value realization in terms of business value, performance value, and sentiment value? And for example, business value, we can quantify like, hey, how do we improve the efficiency to help you save the cost of service? How do we help drive some of your budget efficiencies? So those, again, things we started to translate. And then when we look at the expansion coming from customer success, we'll be able to translate that in terms of the ROI and the investment. And this clearly was based on data. And again, there's another perspective to this, right? I keep saying this to my team and my peers. There's one thing about book smart. There's nothing about street smart. When you actually get them together and have a conversation, then you have the, informed with data, but you also have the pragmatic view of the ground reality. And that's where you make those judgments and make those inferences that really helps us to move forward. And that's really helped us to kind of pivot towards a data-driven organization, or rather the journey towards it. And all the conversations we have, we are looking at data, we're looking at how is that manifesting in terms of the throughput. And that's how we're kind of leading in with an investable model that helps us like, hey, there's no brainer if you need X number of dollars. We know there's an investable model that's helping us to bring the ROI, and that's helping us to get more intimate to our customers, because we are landing the right resources in the right places to make the right impact.
Thank you for that. I find that so exciting to be able to show that type of data to your organization. Now, Manjula, I know you have a great story you'd like to share as well with your experience.
Yeah, I think what Meg's making a very good point here. The world has become digital first. Customer experience is at the heart of it. And I wanted to add another nuance, because whether it's HPE, whether it's SAP, whether it's PagerDuty, we have a little bit different business model. For us at PagerDuty, we are a born SaaS and software as a service company. What does that mean from data? Customer data is generated as fundamental part of a product and business model. It's not ancillary as if that's a side project. Our product does not work without data generation, curation, and analysis. It also means that something we've known from day one, our differentiator is our data. Our customer experience is based on data. So as a result of this, customer success is the growth engine for PagerDuty. Our customer success, our company succeeds because of data. So here is what I think you asked the key question about: how do we drive scalability? And there are three different ways. Number one is, because we have so much data, we built something called the early warning system. It is our powerful system which scales every single customer from a scale of 1 to 100 on the health of a customer. That is determined by deployment, speed of deployment, number of integrations, adoption by our customers. And as a result of it, you brought up the point of budget. How do we scale our organization? It's the underpinning of the customer success group. So how do we use this? How do we use the early warning system? Two ways. I know that Mary's going to talk about the SMB and the scale business. In that business, we've got thousands of customers. We use the early warning system in the health of the customer, on how we engage with them either in person or digitally. For the higher end top customers, our customer success managers have a portfolio. And based on these numbers for a customer, so for example, a customer whose number is 80 out of 100, it's super high, they're very healthy, they'll spend less time with that customer and engage more time with those at risk. The second big area, which has made customer success at the heart of the company's growth, and by the way, we are growing at 30% year over year. We have a net retention score of 120%, and our renewal rates are greater than 95%. How's that happening as trusted advisor? We are taking our data, and we have so much data from the customers, because to become a trusted advisor, a customer wants to know for their digital maturity, are they ahead of their competition? Are they behind their competition? So we are sharing with them benchmarks so that we become their trusted advisor as we take them on the journey. And third, something Meg touched on expansion. We have very clear correlation of X results in Y. If a customer is having a lot of noise in their system, the engineers are getting fatigued, we can go in with our automation products, recommend that versus the human. Our company has human and automation portfolio, and we can basically help them through our expansion of selling more products and resulting in, as customer success group, I've committed to 15% sourcing of all new net ARR for our company this year coming out of the customer success group. Just some ideas in terms of how others can leverage some of these concepts on data as well. The more we leverage data, the more relevant we become for our customers and for our company, and center as the growth engine.
Manjula, those stats are not only impressive. Congratulations to you and your team. But also I love this concept of an early warning system, and I don't believe enough companies have that in place. So for everyone listening out there, customer success management is proactive. You should really think about having this type of strategy in your organization, and data is the perfect way to fund it. Now, in terms of SMB, you started touching on it. Mary, I know you have an incredible story that's really spanned over across the past 5 years. So I'd love for the audience to hear more about it.
Yeah, I would say 5 or 6 years ago, here at SAP Concur, we had started thinking about what digital meant, right? At the time, we had, tens of thousands of customers, and now we have incrementally more than that. So we always knew digital was the way to go. And so I got to be honest, in full transparency, it was a year where, hey, we just didn't get enough headcount for what we needed. I know everyone on this call has had that conversation at one point or another. And it was a little bit of a force function. It was, hey, we know we need to go to a digital-led only segment. And now we were a little bit forced to, in a sense. And if I'm going to be honest, it was a little bit of let's build the airplane while we're flying it. That's the fun part of what we do. And data was how we understood, and we leaned into data, because it's easy to say okay, we're just going to send a bunch of emails to customers based off our desired outcomes that map to what they purchased. And that's really what we're going to lead with. But we're in a digital world, and folks are getting emails and chats and pings and text messages from thousands of different places. So how do you make sure that you're not just more noise, and that you're actually delivering value in a digital way? And so really, this is where we leaned into our data and started to understand things like product set, propensity to buy, where they're engaging with some of our education content. So we're leaning in more and mapping to what we had understood their desired outcomes are, and also doing a lot to connect customers. There's nothing better that you can do is to connect customers that are looking to solve the same business challenges and be there just to facilitate the conversation, right? And so we looked at a multitude of different data points, and that helped us understand when and how we were going to engage and what sort of content that we were going to be sending to customers. And what's the most important thing is consistently measuring what works and what doesn't, and not being afraid to immediately say, this is not working, let's pull the plug. Not let's just keep trying it, this is not working. And hey, this other piece, when we A/B tested it, this message is working better than the first message. So being able to be flexible to make changes using data to help you understand what the best course of action is.
I love that. Yes, the A/B testing is just so critical to learning what is actually working, because data is not enough, right? If you're not actually looking at the data and understanding it and acting on it, then you're simply collecting data. So I'd love to learn more about what everyone's learned through these experiences, because if you think about utilizing customer data and how it can enable your teams to create these repeatable and memorable, actionable customer experiences, you have to also think about, how do you do this without exhausting your resources? So I would love to start with you, Manjula. I know data science is especially important to you given your background. Maybe you can talk a little bit about these early warning systems and your workload. How are you balancing all of this without exhausting your teams?
Yeah, I think it is really important to understand how you're going to leverage the data. And it is also really important to understand that you're not just going to hire 40 data scientists and magically you're going to solve the problem. So 2 key points: totally understand microscopically what is the cause and what is the effect. The effect of X results in Y for a customer. Otherwise, your brain's going to go in so much data. And how do you do that? By hiring the right team. They're data scientists, they're data analysts, they're data architects, and they're business analysts. What is that combination? I have a team of total of 5. It doesn't take 20, 30, 40 folks to do it. If you've got the right combination and you're leading with business, the magic in my organization is I've got a star business leader who's got the data scientists in his team, who also have analysts, who also have architects. And that's the magic. So if companies are looking about scaling their organization with data, it's about your operating model. It's your process, it's your people, and it's the data and the technology. And if you don't have that right mix, you're just going to overinvest and not get the results.
Yeah, this is Mix. I just want to kind of chime in over here to what Manjula said. I think it's absolutely imperative that you have the right team and the right focus. And I just wanted to kind of take that conversation to another level altogether. In our business, ours is a consumption model. So it is everything as a service. So you pay as you use. So you can flex up, you can flex down, right? And that's the power we're giving to our customers, where they have total control on their estate. So for us, data becomes even more meaningful. Imagine we're driving ARR and you're having customers go up and down. It's like, wait a minute, what's happening to my ARR? Is my ARR also swinging? How do we really drive a consistent trajectory for growth, right? So for us, data becomes super paramount. To me, I look at data as oxygen. If there's no data, there's no customer success. As simple as that. Because we are trying to look at moving towards a proactive value-based engagement. So what does that really mean? One is you need to understand you have a lot of noise with data, very unstructured data, which is brilliant because unstructured data has so much of nuggets of information in them. There's an art to how you extract that. And that's why you need a great data architect, great data analyst, and great data scientist, right? As what Manjula said. The perspective of here is also bringing a consistent alignment in terms of what are the data points you want to extract across the lifecycle of the customer. What we call it the moments that matter. So where are the data that matter in the moments of the customer journey, and how are you bringing those listening signals, if you will, into your so-called data ecosystem. And this is where we really focus on moving towards a whole new level with AI ML capabilities to build a prescriptive model that can not just forecast, it can also predict what could be the usage behaviors coming in the future. And guess what? Now, if I wrap that around with some prescriptive approach for our customer success folks to lean in proactively and have that conversation with customers, it's just going to have a different playing field altogether, because now the quality of conversations is heightened. The kind of questions you're asking is very different, and you're getting more connected with the customer. Because imagine you come and tell me something I already know, you're not adding value. But if you come and tell me something I don't know, that is a game changer, because now you're going to move the conversation to a whole different level, and that curiosity and the lean in from the customer is going to be like, tell me more, I want to understand where you're going with this. And that's how it's another pathway for us, what we call as trusted advisors. How do we get in there? Because I wanted to have an honest, open, intimate conversation with my customer and tell them, you don't need to expand at this point of time because you have enough capacity. I just need to make sure you optimize from one technology to another and you're good to go. It's not always about the money, it's about you, customer, right? And when we start doing that and being very open with them and enabling them to accelerate their targeted outcomes, that's when you start becoming more relevant to them. And that's one of the things that's why we keep saying data is so critical. And once we have that data framework in play that's aligned across all your stakeholders, the conversation that you have at the table is very different. And it's a journey, because you learn new things as you progress, as you learn, and as you deal with customers and different use cases. That comes back into your so-called data architecture that you start tweaking and continue to improve. So I just wanted to add that touch to what Manjula said.
Megs, thanks for that very useful information that you're sharing and examples. Mary, I know you also have some, not only, deep experience, but also some examples of how your organization is achieving this dual outcome.
Yeah, I mean, I think first and foremost, I'm a data nerd. So I love data. I love the stories that you can tell with it and how it helps really inform strategy. And with that said, it is very easy for anyone in customer success to start going down these rabbit holes of data, because at times, and depending on what company you're in, there's a multitude of data, right? And so I'm raising my hand. I was very guilty of this early on. Like, we got really excited about this digital segment and this idea of like, how are we going to deliver digital value in a digital way? And we were almost to the point of executing on some things. And it took a conversation with the marketing team. And it seems really obvious that you should be having these conversations with other teams. But I would say you have to be intentional about it. And the reason why you need to make sure that you have different folks in the room is because having someone with a different lens on your data is always helpful to either poke holes in your data or to ask questions that aren't necessarily from a place where like customer success tends to lean in. And the reason why I say that is we now work very closely hand in hand with folks like marketing and product and even sales, right? To make sure that we're all having a part of this conversation. So one, we can have a consistent customer journey, but that we can also ensure that when we're engaging with our customers, it's the most relevant content. And the example that I think of always is very early on in this digital segment, we were going down the road of, hey, we're going to make some videos based off things that we hear customers say a lot. And I happened to have a conversation with the marketing team, and they said, oh my gosh, like, we're having some challenges with pipeline on the client side, and we were looking at engagement data. And I know, again, seems very obvious now, but why aren't I looking at marketing, sales, and engagement data to help inform what we're doing, right? I believe very strongly that if customer success and our support and all the teams around us, if as a company we're doing a good enough job really delivering on desired outcomes, you deserve and earn the right to ask for more of their business, right? And like add-on sales and cross-sell. And so by taking a look at their data, it became clear that there were some very specific content pieces where we saw some massive engagement on the marketing side. And so we really double clicked into those pieces of content and started to understand, okay, where the marketing team has really been focused on, educating folks around cross-sell and upsell, the most engaging pieces of content that they had early on was really around like educational pieces. And they said, hey, listen, I think we might need some help there. So it actually led to us creating a customer success content team. Works hand in hand with the marketing team, but their role really is to ensure that we're creating content that's around driving value. And a lot of it is like educational best practice, like data focused content. And we partnered with the marketing team to actually start to create this content, which led to webinars, which led to massive thousands of people now attend these monthly webinars, right? Like at the beginning, we're like, hey, if we can get a couple hundred people on these webinars, we've done great. Now we're having thousands and thousands of people attend these webinars, and we're constantly updating our content based off the engagement that we're getting from the in-webinar, but also our marketing engagement, which has led to our customer success team is actually sourcing 60% of the pipeline for our client sales team. And again, that's not their job, right? Their job is to educate and listen to customers by asking the right questions. And then we're able to pitch it over the fence to our sales partners for them to take it forward. But even in these webinars where we're educating customers, we actually take folks that raise their hand or ask questions within the webinar. Now you can imagine thousands of people asking questions. You can't get to them all, right, on the live webinar. So we actually take those questions and folks that have asked questions throughout the webinar, feed it back into Gainsight, and it automates a task for our CSMs to follow up with customers based off the questions they had in the webinar. One, it creates a great customer experience because we're following up and we're getting back to them within 24 hours of these webinars happening. And it's actually been unintentionally a very large pipeline generator because of the conversations that come from these. And it's all really about continuing to look at the data and understand and continually adjust.
And Amelia, if you may, I'd just like to, what Mary said is very fascinating. And just to throw another example over here, we use telemetry from a solution, from a platform, and we feed that into Gainsight, into what Mary talked about, the CTAs. It's absolutely mind-blowing because now you're really driving efficiency and very focused, laser focused from a customer success managers to engage with customers, because now you know exactly which of your solutions, because customers have multiple solutions in their estate. So which of the solutions are you really going after to address to make sure the customers are optimizing the usage and the capacity and the utilization in the most effective way? And I think that's why the data plays such a critical role. But hey, by the way, it can also go south. If you architect the data incorrectly and you don't know how to interpret the data, then you're going to go in a very tangential area. That's why, going back to Manjula's point, hiring the right team with the right skills and capability to help stand up a data-driven ecosystem is paramount for any company. Invest in the data scientist, architect, and the analyst. It's worth it because the returns is just so profound.
Thank you for adding that, Megs. Very important. There's a huge difference between being book smart and street smart. So I really like that. Now, Manjula, going back to you, I would really like some of your guidance or thought leadership on how we can provide for organizations that have a fundamental CS strategy, yet they're looking for ways to mature or scale. And this is even for the clients we work with at Growth Molecules. I especially want them all to hear what Mary said about, we might get a few hundred people, but we actually ended up getting thousands. There's this massive need for knowledge sharing. What thought leadership would you give us, Manjula?
Yeah, by the way, I love what Mary talked about. And in this whole SMB business, when I was at Salesforce, we did exactly that. It is mind-blowing what you can do in the long tail, as we call it. But the key point I wanted to make is, as you mature from a basic CS organization that's reactive to becoming proactive, you're all amplifying data and data science. So 2 years ago, I joined PagerDuty. It was a reactive customer service organization. The customer success managers were reactive. It was expert services. Support was reactive. And even the renewal managers were administrators. We changed the overall roles of each of these organizations, moved CSMs to become proactive and trusted advisors. We moved from expert service to professional services. Renewal managers became leaning in terms of managing risk through EWS. The foundation, just like process and systems, is data. So if you think about it, as you're going through this journey, look at your leadership. Are they looking at customer success group as the growth engine or a reactive engine? How much accountability do you want to take to the top line numbers? And what role does data science play in all of this? So as an example, how did the CSMs become proactive and trusted advisors? It's points that both the other panelists have talked about. From data science, the CSMs are now going in and talking to customers about, this is how you use the product. Here's the level of noise. Here is how you can optimize. Here is how your peers are doing. And so now, during a quarterly business review, the discussion isn't about the feeds and speeds of the technical platform. It's more about the business value. What is the ROI you're achieving? How do you remove noise? And how do you drive the growth? Which leads to expansion. And then you become the center of the company as a customer success group, where the product team is talking to you, the marketing team's talking to you, and you're really becoming the orchestrator across the company for the customer.
And Mary, I know you would like to add to this as well.
Yeah, I when we were talking about this question, what really struck me as something that I think is so important, and I always used to introduce myself a little bit tongue in cheek as like a recovering head of sales. Like I started my career in sales and, 10, 12 years ago, started in this thing called customer success, which, if you were to ask anyone 10 years ago what customer success meant, they'd look at you like, I don't know what the hell you're talking about, right? And fast forward to where we are today, and it's really kind of a growth engine for a lot of companies. And so really what I would highly suggest to folks, if you're at a point in your company or your growth stage where you're considering kind of this idea of digital, is to take a step back for a minute and really consider a digital not just as an experience for the customer, but what is the digital journey for your entire company? And it actually starts with like consideration and even like pre-sales, right? And your SDR teams and your sales teams. If a customer is coming in with a digital experience, are they expecting that same digital experience? And vice versa. If you have a very white glove handheld sales experience, but then they're put into a digital model, does that reconcile with what your customers are expecting it to be? Because if you look out externally into any of the research, I mean, literally there are thousands of different research studies that fundamentally tell us all that all buyers, when they're buying technology today, don't typically want to talk to a salesperson unless they have to towards the end to get a little bit more information. But they're doing a lot of their own research online. They're, looking at peer-to-peer sites. They're engaging in communities, right, to understand other potential customers' experiences with the product they're looking to buy. So they've done a lot of what their research, they've already done it online. And they want a buying experience online. I want to check out in a cart. So my advice would be as you're starting to look through your digital experience, don't just look at it through your customer experience. Take your head up, bring in pre-sales, bring in marketing and say, let's map this customer digital journey from soup to nuts all the way through renewal to make sure that we're giving customers a consistent digital experience and setting the right expectations from the beginning of what the experience will be for a digital-led customer.
All right. And we are close. We're down to the final 10 minutes. I want to bring it over to Megs. Can you talk a little bit about how organizations can surface meaningful insights from customer data? It's often very overwhelming to receive all this content, especially if you are fortunate enough to have someone like a data scientist on your team. So being able to surface the data that really matters, and then how do you directly impact a company's ability to lead renewals and expansion with it?
Absolutely. I think it first and foremost starts with what is your data fabric that you're trying to go after to establish and stand up. Having that clarity and the perspective in terms of that architecture is super critical. Just a few days ago, I was actually speaking to a CIO of a public sector company. And in public sector government organizations, they don't get as much funding as you get in the private sector. So for them, every dollar counts. And having that conversation was very fascinating, because one of the things he said, Megs, I really need you to help me, to give me a snapshot that I can literally take from my console, go to my board of directors and say, here you go, see how the investment in our solutions has really paid off. Look at the kind of dollars we're saving. Look at the efficiency we have gained. Look at the productivity we've gained. Look at the de-risks that we are actually having every day and every week, because you have a lot of cyber issues coming in. So how is your solution really helping out there? And it's also helping in terms of, for example, I don't need to go after and hire a lot of contractors, because I have a solution that's really helping me to drive a lot of automation of some of those activities. And that's where you've got to start thinking. It's not about you. It's not about your company, by the way. It's about your customer. Once you have a good understanding of the use cases and what your customers are trying to go out and what kind of problems they're trying to solve and what kind of targeted outcomes you're trying to achieve, you got to kind of reverse engineer that and figure out like, hey, do I have the right set of leading indicators? Going back to Mary's point, we talked about the life cycle, right? The digital life cycle journey. We have instituted something called as an infinite customer journey map. It's kind of an infinite sign. It's a continuum of a customer life cycle as compared to your traditional linear life cycle that you would see. And this is very profound, because right from your discovery to your purchase, landing the deal, to adopt, you expand, you optimize, it's all these touch points are super, super critical. And that's why for us, like when you talk about renewal, I had a little bit chuckle, because in our world, we actually don't look at renewal as renewal. It doesn't exist for us. Because in our business model as a service, you can consume as and when you want, and you can flex as and when you like based on your business needs, and you can just walk away as you need, right? So that becomes even more critical for us, how you really look at building that customer tenuity and eventually customer loyalty. And we start looking at this right, not from day zero, actually right from the pre-win stage. And that's the key aspects, because for us, we don't distinguish between pre-sales, post-sales. We actually don't have that verbiage or the terminology. We look at pre-win and post-win. And this is the connectivity is what we're looking at through data. And that's the piece that we really manifest in terms of, like, as you know, renewal is a point-in-time activity, but we have something called as refresh. So we refresh our solutions with customers, and we are starting to think about this more right up front from the journey perspective, like, hey, customers should not even worry about the refresh. They should not even worry about, let me use the term renewal as well. They should not worry about it, because it is part of the whole ecosystem on which the whole thing is manifesting in terms of how we're achieving and helping customers to accelerate the targeted outcomes and helping them solve the business problems. So that's why the data component becomes critical, because once you land the leading indicators, your lagging indicators is very clear for your book of business, right? Your top line, your bottom line, your lifetime value, your retention rate, your churn rate, you name it. But again, for us, we're trying to move away from the classical traditional views, and we're incorporating the customers' KPIs, because if our customers are successful, then we are actually making an impact and we are becoming relevant more and more with the customer. And that's how we deepen our intimacy with our customers.
Thank you for that. And I know we're down to the last 5 minutes, and I'd love to hear from all three of you as I ask you one last question. For the people joining us today, what is one step that they should consider taking to ensure customer data will enable their teams to scale, to thrive? And we don't want anything fluffy. We just want actual steps that they can take immediately within their organization, regardless of their title. So let's start with you, Mary.
Yeah, I would say, this is kind of my theme, is don't look at data in a vacuum. Like, honestly, I would get your counterparts in product, in marketing, in sales, in pre-sales together in a room and have a conversation around what points of data that you're leaning into and looking into, and or that you're going to use as a foundation to create infrastructure within your company. And it's very important to do that and make sure that you are, one, all working from the same playbook, so to speak. But it actually really helps pull that data thread throughout the experiences that each of those different groups are responsible for, and ensures that there's some continuity in your conversation. So I guess like the Cliff Notes version is don't do it in a vacuum. Like, handhold all of your peers and make sure that they're rowing in the same direction on the same boat that you are.
Yes, don't act in silos. Break down those silos. Bring in other people in the conversation. They will appreciate you, and you will have better allies to support your mission with data. Megs, what about you?
Well, I love what Mary said. Don't work in vacuum and in silos. And that's why it is so critical. Start with investing in customer 360. Get a holistic view of your customers, right from your pre-win to your post-win, every single thing, architect that. That's how you get the customer intelligence. And that informs you in terms of, hey, how do I really drive my next action, my next activity, my next conversation proactively? And how can I also preempt to what Manjula talked about early warning system, right? Which is super critical, because if you do risk mitigation through data, that's top class. And then eventually, it's all about making sure you have a way to really create that prescriptive approach through this data. So you're really, informing your people on what kind of, discussion points or conversations or data points you want to touch upon with the customer, and really bring that conversation to a whole new level that really helps the customer to say, hey, I truly have a trusted advisor who cares about my business, and more so, who knows about my business better than I do. I think that's what I would say. Invest in creating a 360 ecosystem in your company as part of your first mandate.
Thank you, Megs. And Manjula, let's hear from you as our last key takeaway from today's session.
Let perfection not come in your way. Data is cause and effect. When we first built the early warning system in 35 days since I joined the company, we didn't have it perfect. We just had one or two attributes. We learned through that experience as we kept optimizing it, and we continue optimizing EWS even now. So it's not a one and done. Data is about cause and effect, and you've got to constantly fine tune it to reach to perfection.
Yeah, that's a great way to end it. And growing up in Canada, I'll use Wayne Gretzky's quote in that is, you miss 100% of the shots you don't take. So try things. Hopefully you work in an environment and in a company that allows for experimentation with data to see what's working and what's not. And like with Mary's example of the webinars, it's just so exciting to see something like an idea really stick. And so thank you for that note, especially growing up as a woman. You have to be perfect. You have to be perfect. No, you don't. Not when it comes to data. Use your intelligence, try things, and then keep improving. That agile way of thinking is critical in today's organizations. So thank you, everyone, for joining us today on our session. And thank you to our panelists. We all learned so much from your deep insights. Bye, everyone.
Thank you.
Thank you.